Hi, I'm David Judson, Editor-in-Chief of Stratfor. With me today is Reva, Bhalla, our Vice President for Global Analysis, and off-camera joining us via Skype will be Scott Stewart, our Vice President for Security. The topic today is Turkey, a big place in a complex neighborhood, growing more complex by the day, in the wake of a lot of things going on, from East-West standoff over Ukraine to Islamic State to deal with Iran. A lot of people are asking, okay, how is Turkey going to shape itself around the changing geopolitics and politics of the region? We've had Turkey cracking down significantly on the Islamic states and its ease of which the Islamic State could cross the northern border from Syria into Turkey, a lot of arrests, and then yesterday, serious blowback with an attack on a civilian group near the city of Kobane. That were, I think, 32 was the last count. So, any quick take on the context of where Turkey is right now in the decision making?
In a tough spot, right? So this attack is something that we very much expected, and there's been, conspiracy theory galore over Turkey, its relationship with Islamic State. How far does that relationship go? And I think when we step back and we just internalize the constraints that Turkey is under in dealing with its region, and the Middle East really is the highest priority for Turkey at this point just because of the instability, and its relationship with the Islamic State was, I think, very much akin to Pakistan's relationship with jihadist groups across the border and dealing with the Taliban as well. At a certain point, of course, Pakistan came under direct threat from these groups. But there's a phase there where you have some sort of benign neglect where, it's better not to provoke the adversary. And in fact, that adversary was facilitating the momentum, against the regime of Bashar al-Assad, which fit into Turkey's strategic goal of bringing down the regime and inserting someone that's going to be friendly to the Ankara government. But those ambitions run so large, and of course they create lots of problems in between. It was only a matter of time before Islamic State became a direct threat to Turkey. So it's not just the Islamic State threat to Turkey anymore. It's the Kurdish threat, and then it's the strategic ambition of how does Turkey, deepen its influence in northern Syria, its former stomping grounds in the Ottoman Empire, in a way that actually produces results, extends Turkey's influence, but doesn't result in huge blowback at home.
So I want to go to Scott for a second here. Scott, can you comment on this attack yesterday? I mean, all fingers are pointing at Islamic State. Do you have views on who's the responsible here and what it means?
Well, no, I think that if we look at the attack, it clearly has the hallmarks of the Islamic State as far as the target and the timing. And certainly the Islamic State has no problem recruiting suicide bombers. When they started the siege down in Ramadi in Iraq, they used almost 30 of them, in the initial wave. So to see them be able to get bombers across the border is not difficult, especially since this attack looked to have been executed with either a belt or a vest, as opposed to a larger device. But they have the people, the resources, and certainly the will to conduct this type of attack against this type of target.
Well, so, we've got Turkey kind of renegotiating its rules of engagement with its neighbors, also renegotiating the rules of engagement with NATO, with the United States. There's a lot that's being re-examined. While Turkey struggles to form a coalition or perhaps even go to early elections, having just had election on June 7th, any sense, any trajectory for where Turkey's headed here in the short term or medium term?
Well, it's shaky. So on the whole, yes, Turkey does have deepening influence in the region, but it's happening in a very incremental approach and for a good reason. So there are a number of drivers that are pulling Turkey deeper into the Middle East, from IS to the threat of, a wider Kurdish autonomous entity that it has to manage, to, again, its strategic ambitions. But how does it go about doing that? I think we need to really look at the domestic political constraints in one way. We see Whereas a big attack like this could produce a rally around the flag effect in many countries, not so for the AKP. In fact, the AKP is being hammered.
The ruling party,
the ruling
Justice
party of
Development
Turkey,
Party,
yes, being hammered by its opposition, even from members within its own camp on, its foreign policy tactics and whether, this sort of neglect has led to Turkey becoming more vulnerable. And so when you have the idea of a military intervention in Syria as a very unpopular idea in Turkish politics, that isn't something that the government can use, especially when it's in this limbo period politically, in the lead up to what will likely be early elections. So yes, in the long run, Turkey will move incrementally and will see a deeper military presence in Arab lands, particularly in Iraq and Syria. But it's not, an instantaneous thing where an attack like this is going to produce the Turkish military trigger to go in. That's going to take time.
So, Stratfor's view has long been that Turkey is an emerging regional power. Our founder, George Friedman, has a piece up today exploring that very topic. But in terms of Turkey's ability to play that regional role, do you have a sense of a timetable? Can Turkey step into that role that it so eagerly wants to fill in any short-term time frame, particularly with the Syria situation?
Well, it's not like Turkey's not doing anything, right? So Turkey's primary tactic has been in utilizing militant proxies toward its goals. So in Syria, it backs, a set of groups that are friendly to Turkish interests that Turkey can directly train, that are ideologically, close to the ruling AKP. And, that is Turkey's ultimate goal, is to ensure that these militant proxies, these rebel groups, are well positioned politically for an eventual power vacuum in Damascus or a power sharing arrangement that may arise. Again, not anytime soon, but down the line. Even in Iraq, there are different groups that Turkey can back. From Turkmen groups to even Sunni Arab groups to working with certain Kurdish factions. And so it doesn't have to always be a very public, overt way of displaying your influence. We know that Turkey's economic influence is huge in northern Iraq. In northern Syria, as when we actually get to a redevelopment stage, you can bet Turkey is going to be the number one player there. So it will take time, but there are just a lot of these obstacles in the near term to overcome.
So a lot to watch in the neighborhood, a lot to watch with Turkey. We'll be doing so. Thank you, Reva, for joining us. Scott, thank you for coming in via Skype.